Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're standing on a porch that still smells like last night's rain, where two oversized suitcases fog the dawn like small. Wheeled storm clouds and a brass doorbell looks far too optimistic for what it's about to hear. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is. I like seeing our little constellation of night owls. Now, turn off the lights, maybe let a fan hum in the background, and let's begin tonight's journey together. I am Nora Whitman, and at 6:17 a.m., my son, Caleb, and his wife, Sloane Avery, rolled those storm clouds onto my porch and rang. Sloane's smile was the kind that asks for a favor and calls it fate. Caleb hugged me with the weight of a man who wants forgiveness to double as breakfast. Behind them, Miss Carver's curtain lifted across the street. The Parkers pretended their paper was fascinating. "Surprise, Mom," Sloane sang, already stepping into my foyer like it owed her rent. "We sold the house, $620,000. Isn't that abundance?" She said the last word like it would unlock every door in the county. "Abundance usually knows where it's sleeping," I said, keeping my voice at the temperature of tea. "Where's yours?" Caleb scratched his jaw the way he did at 12 when a teacher asked where the homework lived. "We just need to land for a bit, until logistics." "Logistics," I repeated, leading them to the kitchen because conversations behave better around tables. I set the kettle on. Light joke 1. To the kettle, as it complained, "We're doing diplomacy, not a marching band. Inside voices." It settled into a reasonable simmer. Sloane set her phone on my counter like a podium. "We had to move quickly. Nora, the buyers were cash. We closed in 10 days. Her eyes glittered an inch too bright. "We sent the proceeds where they'll grow." "Into what garden?" I asked. "A boutique fund," she said. "Curated opportunities. Think pop-up retail, influencer merch collabs." She said fund the way other people say retirement. Caleb watched the spoon drawer as if it might offer him a script. "Whose name is on the boutique?" I asked. Sloane's eyes flicked, left, right, then anchored. "Mine, but for us." She leaned on the word us until it bent. "Caleb's income flows to stability. I do the upside." I poured tea. "And where are you two staying while upside matures?" She glanced at the suitcases. "Here," she said, as if the house had spoken first. Elder wisdom reflection, given to me by my grandmother, who could shelve a storm with a ladle. When someone arrives with luggage and urgency, ask them to unpack the nouns before you offer a bed. Not feelings, not futures. Nouns. Whose, where, when, how much, and in what name. I sipped my tea, let quiet do the math, and turned to Caleb. "Son, give me the lanes. Sale price, $620. Mortgage payoff, $253, he mumbled. "Closing costs, fees? Maybe 20, he guessed. "Net, roughly $347. Where is it?" Sloane smiled with professional patience. "I already said. The boutique and allied ventures. Cash is trash, Nora." "Trash enjoys bank statements," I said. "Which bank?" Silence tried to take a seat. I did not offer it a chair. Quirky fact, because my brain collects small handles for big moments. The first wheeled suitcase was patented in 1970 by Bernard Sato after he watched Airport Porters. And the four-wheeled spinner pilot's love came later, in the late 80s. Luggage learned wheels before some adults learned plans. Caleb finally found a sentence. Sloane's advisor said wires take a day to settle. We're between accounts. He winced at between, like he could hear how thin it sounded. "Between is where socks go to die," I said gently. I pushed a plate of toast toward him. He stared at it like proof of gravity. Academic phrase of the day: intergenerational co-residence. The public argument that Adult children moving back in with parents can be a vital safety net in expensive times, or a way to avoid responsibility and extend adolescence. Fans cite shared costs and care. Critics warn of blurred boundaries, hidden subsidies, and burnout. The outcome depends on lanes, clocks, and who pays which bill with what consent. Sloane lifted her phone, thumbs flying. "Look, I don't want to be combative. We just need a landing pad, 12 weeks, max." She gave me a smile like a non-refundable deposit. "You wouldn't see us. We're quiet. I'll even help with groceries. And content. Your azaleas could go viral." Light joked too, to my doormat as it tried to look helpful. "Don't encourage her. You're already saying welcome more than you should." The mat, to its credit, kept its lettering dignified. "Groceries are not rent," I said. "And quiet has a definition I'd want in writing." I watched Caleb's shoulders drop one notch. The notch that means he sees the edge of a cliff and is tired of pretending it's a step. "So," I continued, steady. "Before any arrangements, I need truths with timestamps, proof of where the proceeds sit, a budget that walks, a date that exits, and a promise that the only public scenes on this porch will be birds." Sloane blinked like a ring light. "Nora, you're making this adversarial. We're family." "Family learns from history," I said, "and I have mine filed." I slid a coaster across the table, not because her phone needed one, but because boundaries sometimes look like cork and politeness. Caleb rubbed his temple. "We messed up, Mom," he said, almost transparent. "We thought the market didn't ask you to bring your suitcases to my porch," I said softly. I stood, opened the back door to let the morning balance the room, and allowed myself one look at the suitcases. Light joke 3. Whispered to them, "If you've got a return ticket, you're my favorite kind of guest." Their wheels did not contradict me. From the sidewalk, Miss Carver pretended to water a plant that hasn't needed water since Easter. The Parkers' dog chose that moment to fail at discretion. Neighborhoods are excellent barometers. Mine was reading incoming weather. Sloane adjusted her hair, performance notes, and tried a new key. "I'm worried about Caleb," she said. Breathy. "He's been so stressed. If we had a stable base, he could breathe." "He can breathe on a couch he pays for," I said. "Or a motel that charges by the night instead of by my tolerance." Her eyes flared. "You would send your own son to a motel?" "I would send any adult to a place that matches their current skill set," I said. "Couches are training wheels for budgets." Caleb closed his eyes. "Okay," he said to the table. "Okay, we can figure something else out." "Good," I said, "because today is not moving day." Sloane stood too fast for the kitchen to approve. "You'll regret this," she said, quietly enough to pass for kindness if you weren't listening. "We could have made this easy." "Easy is a word people use when they mean unexamined," I said. I walked them to the door, not unkind, just precise. "Send me bank statements. If you need a list of short-term rentals, I'll email links. On the porch." The morning brightened the brass on the bell. Miss Carver waved in the universal dialect of, "I heard everything and will pretend I didn't if you behave." The Parkers discovered a sudden fascination with their recycling bin. Sloane lifted one suitcase, Caleb took the other. "We'll be in touch," she said, which is what people say when they plan to be loud later. "Please don't," I smiled. "Be in paperwork." They rolled away, the wheels making a sound that felt like a warning when the street reclaimed its quiet. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing like a person who just passed a surprise exam. Then I did the two things that have never betrayed me. I wrote what happened, and I made coffee. In my ledger, I logged the hour, the claims, the math that didn't add, the nouns I'd asked for, the answers that tried to be adjectives. I wrote, in the margin, a sentence my grandmother would approve. "If a request cannot survive a question, it cannot live in your house." The kettle sighed, The azaleas outside continued their life without consulting any cameras. Inside, my pen cooled. My pulse matched the kitchen clock, and I let the morning be proud of me on my behalf. By noon, the house had returned to its default settings. Quiet clock. Kettle with reasonable ambitions. Azaleas practicing photo-ready restraint without any camera's help. I washed the 2 mugs from morning and set them upside down like small, obedient domes. My phone napped face down on the counter, a rectangle in timeout. I told myself the weather had passed. At 1:43 p.m., the doorbell rang as if it had rehearsed. I opened to Sloane on the porch in sunglasses that wanted a press conference and a cardigan the color of plausible deniability. Caleb stood half a step behind her, shoulders like parentheses trying to hold a paragraph together. Miss Carver watered the same plant as this morning, such a thirsty fellow, and the Parkers' dog had found religion in the direction of my steps. "We're moving in," Sloane announced to the neighborhood, projecting from diaphragm. "Caleb needs stability. Your refusal is elder neglect." She lifted one suitcase to the threshold. "We'll take the guest room." Light joke 1. To my doormat as it contemplated a career change. "You're a greeting, not a lease. Hold your line." It kept its welcome exactly where I paid for it to be. Elder wisdom reflection. Handed down by my grandmother, who could calm a stampede with a ladle when a conversation tries to become theater. Remove the audience and add a clock. If the other party brings both with them, invite a referee. "Sloane," I said. Bedtime cadence. "Step back from my doorway. We can talk by email. No one moves in today." She smiled with all the teeth of a caption. "You can't keep a son from his mother." She took a step I did not give. My palm went up. Traffic cop gentle. "Stop, you are not welcome inside," Caleb whispered. Sloane, with the tone good men use when they suspect a nearby cliff. She did not stop. She reached across my threshold, grabbed my forearm, and slapped me. Not cinematic, a flat, fast sound. And a sting that felt like it came from a decade of small untruths finally finding a microphone. For a moment, the azaleas disappeared, then the porch returned. Too bright. I pressed my hand to my cheek and felt only heat and insult. "No," I said. To the air, to the script, to the part of me that would have cooked through this. I stepped back, closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and dialed 911 with the steadiness you'd use to lace a shoe. Quirky fact, because even now my brain reaches for something to hold. 911 was chosen in the late 1960s because it was short, unused as an area code, and easy to dial on rotary phones. The first call was placed in Haleyville, Alabama, in 1968. Emergency numbers are designed for hands that shake. The dispatcher's voice wore soft authority. 911, what's your emergency? I kept to nouns and timestamps. This is Nora Whitman, 214 Rose. My daughter-in-law slapped me on my porch. She's outside. I do not feel safe with her in my doorway. She asked if I needed medical help. No, ma'am, I said, honest as a ledger. Just police. She kept me on the line until the siren replaced her. Academic phrase of the day, primary aggressor determination. The public argument about how officers decide whom to arrest when they respond to a domestic or family incident. Advocates say identifying the predominant aggressor, rather than arresting both, reduces harm and manipulation. Critics warn about bias, complexity, and how quickly performance can confuse a scene. Policies vary, training helps, body cams remember. Officer Vega and Officer Dwyer arrived with the quiet choreography of people who practice de-escalation more often than speeches. Miss Carver, suddenly an expert in hydrating soil, backed away. The Parkers' dog filed an enthusiastic amicus brief from his leash. I opened the door to a measured knock. Officer Vega, badge, notebook, posture like a good chair, asked permission to step onto my porch. "We'll take statements out here," she said. A small mercy to my floors. I kept my voice at bedtime. "Thank you. I would like to press charges." The sentence surprised me by sounding like relief. They separated us. Officer Dwyer stood with Caleb at the edge of the walk, taking a history that made a man look at his shoes. Officer Vega asked me what happened and nodded at each timestamp like a metronome. "Any marks?" she asked. Not unkind. "Redness," I said. "No break in the skin." She glanced at her body cam. "Noted." I handed over what I always have: a pen, a notebook. The patience of a person who has taught adjectives to sit down while nouns do their work. "Light joke 2, whispered to the body cam's tiny, unblinking eye. "You are the only witness here who doesn't need iced tea." It recorded, stoic and unseduced. Sloane tried a script that had probably served her on smaller stages. "She attacked me," she told Officer Vega, voice quivering at the edges like good theater. "She grabbed me, and I defended myself." Miss Carver's watering can paused mid-air, indignant but professional. The Parker's dog sneezed a critique. Officer Vega asked Sloane to show where I'd grabbed her. Sloane gestured vaguely at the air near her sleeve. No marks. No rip in the knit. No witnesses willing to testify to physics they didn't see. Caleb, bless whatever takes its time with men, looked at the floorboards and said, "She slapped my mom." He did not look up while saying it, which made it more useful. They placed Sloane under arrest for misdemeanor assault, calmly, with the precise language of people who have done this in front of azaleas before. The cuffs came out like punctuation. "You can't be serious," she said, to no one in particular. Officer Vega's tone remained adult. "You will have a chance to speak in court. For now, no further statements." She nodded at me. "Would you like a no-contact order today?" "Yes," I said, not brave, just finished with the alternative. Caleb's face did something human and hard. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said, voice sanded down. "I didn't know it would go like this." "It went how she chose," I said, gentle as a boundary. "Get a room, eat something. We'll speak when we can do it in chairs." They escorted Sloane to the cruiser. Miss Carver's plant miraculously became hydrated. The Parkers dragged their trash cans back with the dignity of civilians who have accidentally attended civics. I signed the complaint on the porch rail with a pen Officer Vega produced from a pocket that looked like it always has one. She gave me a brochure nobody wants, but many need. "Court will likely set a no-contact order at arraignment," she said. "We can also file an emergency protective order now. Your call." "Now," I said, while my courage fits in a form. Light joke 3. To the pen as it left carbon copies in neat layers. "You're the only thing in this story allowed to duplicate." It obliged. Competent as sunshine. They left with a promise to email the incident number. The siren remained off. The neighborhood exhaled. I went inside and did the two things that keep my nervous system from getting ideas. I drank water and I wrote. I logged time. Names, badge numbers, the words I used, and the ones I refused. I wrote pressed charges in block letters that didn't wiggle. I drew a tiny azalea in the margin because I'm allowed one private joke per calamity. I texted Miss Carver, "Thank you for your watering can's commitment to civic life." She texted back 3 watering can emojis and "proud of you." The Parker sent the dog's photo, looking very employed. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't know that turned out to be the county. Arraignment in the morning. Temporary no-contact orders available today at the clerk's desk if I wanted. I wanted. I showered, dressed like a woman who trusts paper, and took my folder. At the courthouse, I met a deputy clerk with a stamp that made the drop in my stomach reverse course. We filled the blanks with nouns. She explained service. I read, initialed, signed. When the stamp landed, the order felt like a fence you can lean on. On the way home, I stopped at the hardware store and bought a small box of long screws for the strike plate, 3 inches, the kind that reached the stud. The teenager at the register admired my list. "We sell a lot of these after people have a day," he said. "They help." Back at the house, I installed them slowly with a hand screwdriver because power tools nervous up the door frame. The latch seated with satisfying honesty. In the evening, Caleb texted an address at a motel and 3 sentences that would fit in a ledger. "We checked in. I'm feeding myself. I'm sorry." I replied. "Good. Rest. All logistics by text." Then I set the phone on the counter like a student who needs a quiet corner and boiled pasta with more mercy than drama. Before sleep, I wrote the day into my ledger with the tenderness I reserve for boring victories. 1:43 p.m., porch incident, 911. Officers Vega, Dwyer, complaint signed, arrest made, emergency order filed, strike plate screws installed, water, 2 glasses, dinner, simple, pulse, steady. I added a line my grandmother would have embroidered if she liked thread more than ladles. If someone disrespects your doorframe, make both stronger, one with paper, one with screws. The kettle cooled. The azaleas outside held their pose. Inside, my face stopped burning. My pen stopped needing to. Tomorrow would add its paragraphs. Locks, perhaps cameras, definitely more water. But tonight the house remembered my name. And the porch, at last, went back to being only a porch. Arraignment mornings have a particular stillness, like a hallway holding its breath. I dressed in the kind of quiet clothes paper respects. Slid the emergency order into a clear sleeve, documents behave when they can watch themselves, and drove to the courthouse with the calm of a person who has already decided to be boring on purpose. Sloan appeared in a navy dress that believed in ring lights. Her attorney whispered into a stack of adjectives. The judge spoke in nouns. No contact order granted. Next date set. Caleb sat 2 rows back, a motel crease in his jacket and an apology he didn't try to turn into currency. Elder wisdom reflection. My grandmother's favorite scale for days like this. Weigh your piece by the page, not by the performance. If it fits inside a stamped order and a calendar square, you can carry it home, back at the house. I made coffee that didn't audition and opened the hall closet where my life has been keeping receipts since dial-up. Red folders for taxes, blue for insurance. A stack of legal-size envelopes that refuse to be intimidated by 8 on a half at 11. I meant only to label a few things. Paper had other plans. In a tan accordion file. Behind a stack of warranties for appliances that have already died honorable deaths. I found a promissory note I'd half forgiven and then, apparently, filed $40,000 to Caleb Whitman, dated 3 summers ago when a bridge needed building. Interest modest, due on demand, signed in ink that still had an opinion. Stapled to it, a recorded lien on his then house, proper, notarized, time-stamped by a clerk whose initials looked like a tiny fence. Light joke 1. To the stapler that had preserved my memory better than I had. You're promoted to archivist, salary payable in paper clips. It clicked once with offended competence. I took a photo for my file, made 2 copies, and called the only lawyer I keep in my phone for emergencies that prefer light to noise. Alan Mercer. He answers like a metronome. How formal do you want this? He asked after I sketched the last 48 hours. Very, I said. And we have a note. Paper makes attorneys kind. Good, he said. We'll put guardrails around the criminal case and lanes on the civil side. Demand on the note first, if ignored. Suit, also, locks, cameras, notices. Quiet enjoyment applies to single-family houses too, when the neighbors think your porch is community theater. He gave me a locksmith's number and an installer who knows where to put a camera so it sees drama without becoming it. Academic phrase of the day: constructive trust. The public argument that courts can declare, "You're holding this for someone else," when money or property was obtained by fraud or abuse. Fans call it equity with teeth against unjust enrichment. Critics warn it makes ownership feel mushy and invites creative pleading. The short version: if someone used tricks to move value, the court can order that value to walk back. The locksmith arrived with a canvas bag and shoes that didn't apologize for being practical. We rekeyed both deadbolts, added a 1-inch throw to the back door, and installed a strike guard that hugs the latch like a linebacker. He admired my 3-inch screws from yesterday. "Most folks wait until after the story," he said. "You upgraded during it." We shook hands with the mutual respect of people who value a door that prefers to answer only to meaning. The camera installer, a woman with a ladder and the patience of a librarian, placed a doorbell camera at eye level and a second on the eave. Carefully angled to catch my porch without filming Miss Carver's hydrangeas. "No need to deputize the neighborhood," she said. "We're collecting evidence, not content." Light joke 2. To the new doorbell as its chime tried on optimism. "You're a witness, not a wedding DJ. Keep it dignified." It chimed once, monkish. Quirky fact, for the file labeled "Handles for Hard Days." The manila in manila folders is traces to Manila hemp, abaca fiber from the Philippines, used in 19th century paper for its strength. Modern folders are wood pulp, but the name stuck like a tab that refuses to fall off. I held my tan accordion and felt an absurd, grateful kinship with long-ago rope and the ships it kept honest. Alan's courier, tie, bike helmet, and a respect for stairs, brought a thin red weld with our plan. 1. Formal demand on the $40,000 note. Return receipt requested. 2. Notice to preserve all communications and financial records related to the house sale, buyers, wires, boutique fund, advisors. 3. Draft complaint for breach of promissory note, unjust enrichment, and, if necessary, constructive trust on remaining proceeds in any account where they currently pretend to be safe. 4. A letter to the motel's manager requesting they refrain from serving papers to my porch or publishing my address in their lobby narrations. Service goes to counsel. Paper asked for nothing more dramatic than stamps and calm printing. I provided both. I called Caleb before the courier reached him. Bedtime cadence. "I found the note. Caleb, I'm making a demand. Alan's letter explains. This is not punishment. It's the cleanest lane." He inhaled a history. "I remember," he said. "I thought we had more time." "We don't," I said. "And neither do I." He asked for a copy. I sent a scan. "Do you want me to fight it?" he asked, the old script seeing a familiar mark. "No," I said. "I want you to honor it." Silence shaped itself into a yes. Alan called after to report the motel manager's reply, civil, weary, and helpful. "We've had worse," the manager had said, which is the hospitality industry's national motto. "We'll accept service for the guest if needed. Please keep it out of the lobby. The coffee station is not a courthouse." I sent a thank you note with a little gift card for fresh filters because kindness scales. Officer Vega emailed the incident number and a list of victim services I hadn't known my county funded. Lock change vouchers, already done. 2 counseling sessions with a provider who speaks litigation and grief. An accompaniment if future hearings grow teeth. I printed the email and slid it into a tab marked Court, Current, Light Joke 3. To the printer as it sighed out black and white competence. "You're my favorite co-author. Please never develop opinions." It obliged. Obedient as moonlight on forms. By late afternoon, the house had regained its temperament. The door opened only for people who mean it. The porch camera minded its privacy settings. and the azaleas resumed being scandalized only by aphids. I made a sandwich and took the Redwell to the dining table the way some take devotionals to pews. I wrote my own small affidavit for future me. Time, place, hand that rose uninvited. The sound of a slap that has stopped echoing. Then I closed my eyes and let the kitchen noise, light, clock, the new doorbell's dignified stillness recalibrate the part of my body that wants to narrate itself into knots. Evening brought 2 texts that earned a ledger entry. From Caleb. Received demand. I won't contest. We'll meet Alan tomorrow. From an unknown number that introduced itself as Grant Ellison, Sloane's investor, if rumors were to be believed. Miss Whitman, I may have information relevant to funds described as a boutique. Not looking to be a villain or a hero. If your counsel wishes, I'll recite under oath. I forwarded to Alan. He replied with 3 words lawyers use when the weather changes in your favor. This will help. I watered the azaleas anyway. Gratitude should have hands. And texted Miss Carver. New doorbell. It respects hydrangeas. She sent back, hydrangeas appreciate boundaries. The Parkers delivered a photograph of their dog asleep with a tennis ball under his chin, as if testimony were exhausting. Before bed, I log the day in rows that courts and kitchens both understand. Arraignment, no contact order granted. Locksmith, rekeyed plus strike guard. Cameras, installed. Privacy respected. Note, located. Lien confirmed. Demand, sent. RR. Preservation notice, issued. Motel, cooperative. Officer email, received. Services noted. Counsel, engaged. Witness lead. Grant. Caleb will not contest. Water, drunk, sandwich, eaten, pulse, return to the key of ordinary. Then I added 1 line for the version of me who will one day forget how we did this. When peace is threatened, put ink on it, put screws in it, and let the stamp do some of the breathing. The house dimmed without a speech. The new lock learned my hand. Somewhere. A postal clerk will drop a green card into a bin. And a bored blue signature will walk back to my mailbox like small proof that paper still travels faster than rumor in here. A Redwell rested. The printer slept like a righteous machine, and the doorbell practiced being a witness who only speaks when spoken to. Alan sent a text that read like oxygen. Investigator on it. Expect lanes by afternoon. I put the kettle on the back burner, steady flame, and laid the Redwell on the table like a sleeping cat. The doorbell camera watched the porch with monkish discipline. I took 1 picture of the azaleas just to remind my nervous system we still live where flowers are allowed to be only flowers. Elder wisdom reflection. Gifted from my grandmother and smoothed by years. When you think you need courage, you often need sequence. Coffee. Calendar. Copy of the file. Call. Courage shows up in line. By 2. Alan arrived with Serena Pike, a licensed investigator who wears sneakers that translate urgency into data. She spoke softly, as if the house could hear and deserve the lullaby. Here's the boutique, she said, sliding a print out. State records show a sole member LLC, Sloan Avery, DBA, Sloan & Sundry, no employees. No license beyond general retail. She placed bank summaries beside it. Each page a polite indictment. Proceeds from the house hit an online bank 4 days ago. Within 72 hours, on $400 to ad buy creator retainer, $6,900 to a luxury short-term rental, $4,250 to Ellison Creative Consulting LLC, and a scatter of smaller transfers, ride shares at Premium Surge, cash withdrawals in round numbers, boutique inventory that seems to be aspirational. Ellison, I said, tasting a fact I already knew. Serena nodded. Grant, registered last spring, their texts exist, screenshots preserved. She lifted a manila folder so light it almost apologized. Inside, Time-stamped messages that tried to be clever and ended up being evidence. Selfies taken in mirrors that never learned discretion. And an invoice from Ellison Creative that billed 10 hours of Brand Arc. "Is Brand Arc a bridge you can drive over?" I asked. Alan's smile was legal. "Not if the court gets to name the river." Light joke 1. To the binder clip that held Serena's stack with modest authority. "You're the only clamp here that improves behavior." It gripped the papers like it had a moral code. Serena's timeline drew itself, listing date to closing in 10 calendar days, wired to Sloan and Sundry within 6 hours, in an overnight sprint through optimism into smoke. "This is a burn rate, not a business," she said, voice kind but unmoved. "Also, the boutique inventory photos are of borrowed samples. The supplier confirmed no purchase orders." She placed a call log on the table. Lines of numbers that won't do performance. "And this," she said gently, "is the motel's front desk. Miss Avery extended through Friday." Academic phrase of the day: fraudulent transfer. The public argument that moving assets to put them beyond the reach of people you owe, creditors, lien holders, even family, should be unwound by courts. Fans say it prevents unjust enrichment and gamesmanship. Critics warn it can chill legitimate planning and punishes timing. The statutes talk about badges of fraud, sudden transfers, insider deals, inadequate consideration. Translation: if it looks like a magic trick, the court asks where you hid the card. We agreed on sequence. Alan drafted a preservation subpoena to the bank and marketing firm, and a notice to Ellison Creative that any deletion would meet a motion with teeth. Serena queued a request to the social platform that hosted Sloan's Drops for basic subscriber info, stating plainly that civil litigation was pending. "These companies like lanes too," she said. "Ask them for what they can give without a fight, then schedule the fight if you need it." I printed, initialed, and felt calmer with each page aligned. Quirky fact: to hand the moment a handle, the humble binder clip was patented in 1910 by Louis Baltzley for his writer father, who was tired of sewing pages together. It holds without punching holes. It lets go without drama. I set one by the kettle as a reminder that restraint is technology. Service needed doing. Alan's process server, Rita, arrived with flats you could jog in and a messenger bag that had seen every kind of lobby. "Where?" she asked. "Motel," Alan said. "Desk knows we're coming. No porch service." Rita nodded, a professional rain cloud. "And the tone?" "Civil," Alan said. "Always. But let the papers meet hands." We drove separately and met in the parking lot where concrete forgets to be generous. Rita briefed us from the hood of her car. "I'll knock. I'll ask Miss Avery to confirm her name. I'll tell her these are court papers and leave them within reach. Body cam on for the single sentence we need." Light joke 2. To her body cam's practical lens: "We appreciate your commitment to verbs over volume." It blinked, busy and unflattered. Sloan opened the door in a robe that wanted to be a plot point. Rita's delivery took 14 seconds. "Miss Sloan Avery, court papers, you've been served." The camera captured her hand hovering, then touching the envelope like it might stain. "Have a good day," Rita said, already pivoting, in the shot over Sloan's shoulder. A suitcase sulked and a ring light pretended to be the moon. On the way out, Caleb appeared in the breezeway as if pulled by gravity's better twin. "Mom," he said, and stopped, as if the word itself had tripped him. His face did the arithmetic and tore up the more convenient sum. "I'll go with Alan," he said softly. "We'll fix the note." "Good," I said. "Start there. Eat dinner. Keep receipts." Back home, Serena emailed a summary that read like clean glass, bank account identifiers, timestamps, vendors, total outflows, remaining balance dwindling beneath a line that used to be called cushion. She'd added a page titled Badges Observed, Insider Transfers. Inadequate consideration. Timing that's printed. The last lines were a gentle directive. Move quickly for a temporary restraining order on further dissipation. Ask for bank to freeze specific accounts to the amount in controversy. Offer to escrow disputed funds. Courts like solutions that look like chairs. Alan called Judge Porter's clerk to request an emergency calendar slot. If the court's inclined, he told me, we'll propose a narrow freeze, no rent interruption, no food blocked, just the big pipes. Judges don't like starving, but they do like fairness. I made tea and lined up 3 cups, superstition in porcelain. Grant Ellison emailed a confession written to be read aloud without makeup. Miss Whitman, it began, I made poor choices. Sloan represented the fund as hers, but with backers she didn't name. Payments to me were for ideas, nothing shipped. I can provide invoices, messages, and show where the money went. I'm not proud. I am willing. Alan replied with a thank you and a time. Deposition. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Conference room with water and no microphones. Light joke 3. To the conference room calendar invite, as it popped up too cheerful. We are having accountability, not a birthday. Tone it down. The IIC settled into a respectable gray. Evening lowered its shoulders. I walked the yard with the hose because today deserved the small absolution of watering what stays put. Miss Carver leaned on the fence in that neighborly way that pretends we met by accident. Saw a woman with a ladder at your door yesterday, she said. She respected the hydrangeas. A rare virtue, I said. We're in the era of people filming the street for content. She wrinkled her nose. Content can compost itself. I wrote the day into the ledger in lines that even a stranger could audit. Serena, LLC sole member, bank, proceeds in, wrap it out, vendor payments, add by. Luxury rental, Ellison Creative. Inventory, no POs. Motel, service accomplished. Rita, body cam. Caleb, agreed to honor note, grant, email confession. Depot set, Alan, TRO, request prepped, narrow, freeze/escrow. Copies printed, initialed by binder, clipped, water, 3 glasses, pulse, in key of ordinary. Before the lamp. I added 1 line for the future where I'll need this reminder more than the outcome. When a story tries to run, hand it paperwork. When money tries to smoke, put it under glass. When your heart tries to narrate, give it a calendar instead. Then sleep. The doorbell camera glowed once. A firefly that respects curfew. The strike plate's long screws held the door with their quiet muscles. Somewhere in a courthouse inbox, our motion found its folder and waited its turn like a citizen. In here, the binder clip kept its tidy fist, the kettle cooled to a reasonable silence. And my house, which prefers verbs to drama, remembered my name again. The motion for a temporary restraining order landed on Judge Porter's afternoon calendar like a calm hand on a noisy table. Alan and I sat at Council Row with Serena's timeline stacked in tidy bands of timestamps. Across the aisle. Sloan wore litigation navy and an expression that had practiced innocence in a mirror with good lighting. Grant Ellison took the last bench seat, eyes the color of second thoughts. The clerk called our case. The ceiling fans pretended to be monks. Elder wisdom reflection, my grandmother's favorite way to stand through hard rooms. Hold 1 good sentence in your pocket and rub it like a stone. Mine today. Let the paper carry the temperature. When I wanted to narrate, I read the dates instead. Alan stood. Narrow relief, Your Honor, he said. Bedtime cadence for courts. Freeze only the accounts identified by subpoena to the amount in controversy. Permit reasonable living expenses. Escrow future deposits above $500 and set a prompt hearing. He slid Serena's chart forward, proceeds in at 10:14 a.m. Outflows by category, remaining balance making itself small. Sloane's lawyer rose with adjectives. Entrepreneurship, he said. Pregnancy, punitive tactics. Judge Porter lifted one palm, the universal sign for chairs, not drama. Counsel, is there an accounting? She asked. A budget? Any documentation of business inventory? He gestured at a binder that hoped to be flattering. Serena's eyebrow did the math and found it wanting. Grant's voice, when sworn, had the steadiness of a man newly allergic to glamour. Payments to my LLC were for concepts, he said. No deliverables shipped. We had a relationship that blurred invoices. Alan didn't squeeze. Judges dislike theater. He simply asked, "Were you aware Miss Avery moved house sale proceeds into Sloane and Sundry the same day?" Grant swallowed. Yes. Judge Porter's pen made a small, satisfied sound. Light joke one, whispered to the courtroom water pitcher as it glinted under fluorescence. Your hydration, not a spotlight. Stay humble. It obeyed, mercifully plain. Relief granted in part, Judge Porter said, voice like a metronome. Freeze specific accounts to $120,000 pending hearing. Allow $1,000 weekly for necessities. Any brand, ad, or consulting spend requires prior court approval. Parties to confer on escrow logistics. Her stamp landed in the corner with a sigh that told the room what weather it was. The clerk handed us copies that still smelled like authority. Outside, sunlight behaved better than feelings. Alan's phone vibrated with a note from the bank. Freeze in motion. Serena exhaled like a person who had been holding a door for 3 days. We have lanes, she said. Lanes hold. Caleb texted 2 words from the motel, saw order, then a longer one I trusted more. Thank you. I did not reply with a speech. I sent. Eat something. We met that evening at the diner that doesn't do drama. Only pie. He slid into the booth across from me, motel crease and all. Hands clean the way a man's hands are clean when he's trying to start over. I laid Serena's distilled printouts between the ketchup and the napkin holder. Business facts, I said. No volume. He read, lips moving like a person teaching his mouth new math. The boutique, he whispered, not as defense, as diagnosis. Grant. He turned the page with 2 careful fingers. The rental. He closed his eyes once, as if letting down a curtain, and opened them on the version of the room that can be survived. I knew some, not like this. Academic phrase of the day. Willful blindness. The public argument about whether choosing not to know should count as knowing. Prosecutors use it to close the loophole of I didn't read the fine print while cashing the checks. Critics warn it punishes denial like deceit. In families. It sounds like I didn't ask because the answer would have hired a consequence. Tonight. He retired the phrase. I've drawn 2 maps, I said, sliding him a notepad titled Lane A and Lane B. A. You honor the $40,000 note with a written plan. Small. Automatic payments that don't lie. You stop subsidizing Sloane's upside. You get a counselor and sit in a chair twice a month until the chair recognizes your posture. B. You keep the boutique fantasy alive, and our relationship switches to court hallway nods. Lane A, he said before the coffee arrived. He traced the line of the page like a person taking an oath with his fingertips. I didn't see it, he added, or I chose not to. Both are on me. Good, I said. Conditions. No living at my house. No keys. No asking me to be a witness to your hope before your spreadsheet. You want dinner? Bring receipts and bread. He almost smiled. Not a metaphor, he said, remembering. Not a metaphor. I agreed. Quirky fact, because even grief can be steadied by trivia. Motel keycards don't demagnetize from your phone. They're low coercivity stripes prone to wear and heat, and most of the trouble is encoding. Not your pocket's fault. We both stared at his card on the table and let the minute be absurd together. I called Tessa, he said quietly. naming Sloane's sister. She cried in a way that sounded old, said this isn't new, said she's tried to be a lighthouse and a breakwater and a coast guard, said she's tired. Join the coast, I said, but only the part with life vests. He looked up. Is there a path where I'm not the worst thing that happened to you this year? I took a sip of coffee and answered with the sentence I'd rubbed smooth in my pocket all day. There is a path where you are the paperwork that kept me from it. We went to Alan's office the next morning because momentum is a tool. Caleb signed a written repayment plan for the note. Modest monthly amounts. Auto-drafted. First payment in 14 days. A clause that turns missed payments into a letter to the court instead of a family speech. He also initialed a stipulation not to oppose the TRO and to cooperate with production. Alan slid across a one-page list in 12-point mercy, no talking to Sloane about the case, no deleting messages, no new debt, therapy appointment by Friday, consider consultation with family attorney. Caleb signed like a person who has decided his hand will be useful. Light joke too. To the office copier as it warmed with the confidence of a veteran. You are the only machine I trust with multiplying me. It hummed a small amen. Serena walked us through what comes next without scaring the air. Bank statements. A deposition where questions arrive like chairs instead of spotlights. And a hearing where math has the floor. Bring water, she said, and a sweater. Justice prefers cold rooms. She checked her watch. Grant at 10. Grant arrived with a folder that had stopped rehearsing for exoneration and settled for truth. Alan put him under oath and asked short questions. Did Sloane represent that she had investors? Yes. Did you ever ship product? No. Did you know about the house proceeds? Yes. Did you and Miss Avery have a personal relationship? Yes. Did payments correspond to deliverables? No. Do you have the messages? Yes. We marked them. The court reporter's keys clicked like rain you can plan around. When it was done, Grant asked if he could say one sentence off the record. Alan allowed it with that lawyerly nod that means, no confessions we can't use, please. I'm sorry, Grant said to me, not dodging, not begging. I helped lace the boots that walked over your porch. I held his gaze and gave him back the only mercy that didn't mortgage my peace. Then help unlatch them where the judge can see. We left with a transcript to be typed and a day that had remembered its lane, outside Alan's building. The city practiced being ordinary. Caleb stood beside me with a paper bag that contained 2 apples and a courage he hadn't named yet. I'll be at the motel, he said. I'll send the therapy confirmation. Good, I said. The chair is waiting. Light joke 3. To the crosswalk signal that blinked its tiny, unambitious man. Lead on, we're fans of your governance. It changed like it was born to. At home. The door recognized my key on the first try, which is a kind of benediction. I wrote the day into the ledger with the affection I reserve for stamps and honest screws. TRO, granted. Narrow freeze, escrow. Grant, sworn. Useful. Serena, badges listed. Bank moving. Caleb, Lane, A chosen. Plan signed. Therapy scheduled. Sloane, litigation Navy. Adjectives. No budget. Water. 3 glasses. Pulse, in key of ordinary. Then I added a line for the woman I'll be when memory gets lazy. Love is not the opposite of law. Love is choosing law early enough that no one has to bleed. I turned off the lamp. The new doorbell kept Monk hours. Somewhere. A bank's compliance team toggled a freeze from pending to done. Somewhere else. A motel keycard survived a pocket full of coins. In here. The ledger lay bland and heroic. And the house, my house, exhaled in a register that matched my breath exactly. The morning after the hearing wore the calm of a freshly wiped counter. No shine. Just ready, I made coffee that didn't audition, checked the porch camera, hydrangeas, respected, and opened an envelope Alan had forwarded from Sloane's lawyer. The letter tried 3 keys in 1 page: defamation, for calling the boutique a sinkhole; elder neglect, for declining to host suitcases; and, as a finale, a threat to expose Caleb's tax irregularities. It ended with a grin made of Latin. I set it on the blue folder labeled Noise and called Alan. "Good," he said, which is how attorneys say inevitable. "We'll answer with lanes. You have an order, we have a note, we have receipts. On the tax hint, we go first." He looped in a forensic CPA, Lauren Kim, who speaks spreadsheet the way a nurse speaks calm. "Voluntary disclosure beats surprise," he added. "Judges like self-cleaning kitchens. Elder wisdom reflection, handed down by my grandmother, who could de-escalate a kitchen with a ladle when someone waves a threat like a flag. Inventory your own cupboards before you look out the window. If anything's expired, throw it out yourself, write the date, and make soup anyway." At noon, I met Lauren in Alan's conference room, the thermostat set to cord preferred cardigan. She opened a legal pad that already liked me. "Let's vacuum the corners," she said softly. "Any gift transfers? Side gigs? Forgotten 1099s? Caleb arrived with a paper grocery bag of what passes for memory, check stubs, an ancient W-2, a handful of mail he'd been avoiding, and a look I recognized from the science fair volcano year, and ready to carry something heavy the right way. "I underwithheld last year," he said before breathing. "I also took a cash advance once and told Mom it was a work reimbursement because I didn't want her to worry." He winced. "I'm telling on myself because I want no one else to get that job." "Good," Lauren said, pencil moving like a pulse. "We file amended returns if needed, set an installment plan if there's balance due, and prepare a brief statement explaining the correction. No adjectives, no heroics." She turned to me. "Any past transfers that should be papered?" "A $40,000 note," I said. "Found the lien. Demand served. He's honoring it." She smiled with the exact wattage of trust. "Then we make sure the IRS hears that sentence before anyone else weaponizes half of it." Academic phrase of the day: voluntary disclosure. The public argument that proactively admitting tax or regulatory errors can reduce penalties and build credibility. Supporters say it encourages compliance and clears the air. Critics warn it rewards corner cutting and favors those who lawyer up first. In rooms like ours, it sounds like stamped forms and installment agreements instead of headlines. Light joke 1. To Lauren's calculator as it blinked stoically. "You're the only thing in this story allowed to judge me silently." It kept its digits polite. On my way home, I stopped at the neighborhood market for bread that doesn't lie. In the dairy aisle, a stranger angled her phone like she was filming a sunset that owed her rent. "It's the mother," she murmured to someone off-screen. I moved to an end cap and sat on the bench where kids wait for balloons. "Ma'am?" I said to the ceiling, so the camera could catch dignity without drama. "No contact, all logistics by counsel." I texted Officer Vega, possible proxy contact, store aisle, and walked to the register with the posture of a woman paying for groceries in cash and peace. Back on Rose Street, the doorbell camera pinged. A floral arrangement, no card. I left it outside like a bad idea and watered the azaleas instead. Miss Carver called across the fence. "You're trending on nobody's feed over here," which is the only algorithm I accept. Lauren's email arrived at 4 with a tidy checklist. Review wage statements, request tax transcripts, draft amended return, set IRS payment plan, send counsel a 1-paragraph disclosure for the court. Mr. Whitman has engaged a CPA, initiated corrections, and established a plan. I forwarded it to Alan with 3 words: chairs, not scenes. Quirky fact: to hand my heart a handle while printers hummed, Court reporters use stenotype machines with about 22 keys. Corded like a piano, they press multiple keys at once to capture syllables, not letters. And each reporter has a personal dictionary mapping sounds to words. That's why they can catch your whole life at 225 words per minute and still correct Sloan and Sundry to Sloan and Sundry if your vowels misbehave. Caleb arrived at 6 with bread labeled not a metaphor, and a look that didn't ask for absolution. I made the therapy appointment, he said. I told them I want the version where I can sit still without inventing emergencies. He cleared my mail slot, tightened a hinge that squeaked opinions, and laid his phone on the counter like a penitent. If I'm tempted to text Sloan past business hours, he said, I'll email Alan instead. I'm paying him. I might as well get my money's worth. I laughed the kind of laugh that doesn't owe anyone an apology. Light joke, too, to the hinge as it finally accepted lubricant like a sacrament. We're grateful you've repented of jazz. It swung with new humility. At 8, Sloan tried a new instrument, a statement on her social about women entrepreneurs silenced by litigious elders, a hazy photo of a crib, and the bones of a lie. Serena texted a screenshot and a reminder. Don't chase it. Courts don't refresh feeds, they stamp. I put the phone back on the blue plate and picked up a pen. Paper is the only comment section worth my time. The next morning, Alan forwarded a settlement overture from Sloan's counsel, unfreeze the accounts, dismiss the note claim, and they'd consider an apology, vague as steam. Alan's reply had the elegance of a door that fits its frame. Escrow the remaining proceeds and any refunds, continue the freeze, produce an accounting, stipulate to the note, then we can discuss adjectives. We met Lauren again for signature day. She'd built a small, boring altar of forms, 1040x drafts, an installment plan request, a budget that left nothing to imagination, and a letter that said only what was needed. Corrections initiated, payments scheduled, counsel engaged. Caleb signed with a hand that had finally learned its job. On the way out, he paused. There's one more thing, he said. Last spring, when money was stupid, I borrowed $2,500 from a buddy and let him think you'd co-sign if it went bad. He winced. He never called you. I paid it. It's done. But I don't want secrets sitting in the corners collecting dust. We wrote it down. Lauren added it to the list labeled already fixed, which is how some guilt learns to retire. Afternoon brought a sharp knock I'd trained my door to distrust. Through the camera, a woman I recognized from the dairy aisle, phone out, face set to content. I opened the door on the chain and employed the only script that serves me. No contact, all logistics to counsel. Officer Vega arrived in 5, as if choreographed. She addressed the woman with that quiet chair voice. Ms. Whitman has a no-contact order. You are not going to be part of a violation today. The phone lowered. Air returned to its right size. Vega tipped 2 fingers to her body cam and smiled like a human. Call us before your pulse does, she told me. We prefer calendars to sirens. Light joke 3. To the door chain as it settled back, you're a necklace for the house. Thank you for accessorizing with boundaries. It gleamed, pleased with its station. That evening, Serena sent a lane map for next week. Accounting due Tuesday, hearing Friday, deposition Monday for Sloan. Grant's transcript finalized. She'd added a note about the social try. Screen grabs preserved. We won't feed it. I watered the azaleas, waved at the Parker's dog, very employed, and wrote the day into the ledger in rows that hum. Threat letter, answered with CPA, voluntary disclosure, initiated, amended returns, drafted, plan, installment set, proxy contact, documented, deterred, hinge, civilized, bread, not a metaphor, Sloan, feeds the app, we feed the court. Before the lamp, I added one line for the future me who will someday forget how you outlast weather. When fear says, "What if they," answer with, "We already did." Then point to the file, the stamp, the payment schedule, the hinge that no longer sings at 3 a.m., and go to bed like a person whose house knows her name. I spent the morning shelving paperbacks at the community center, the kind with sun-faded spines and mysteries that always tip their hat before they leave town. The room hummed in a key my pulse could match. Kids at chess, a yoga class negotiating with hips, a bulletin board that believed in free soup on Thursdays. I set my phone to vibrate and let the day be small on purpose. Elder wisdom reflection. My grandmother's rule for public places. Pick a chair near the exit and a sentence you can use without permission. Mine was ready. No contact. All logistics to council. At 11:12, the door opened and a ring light walked in wearing a person. Sloane. She had the look of someone about to narrate their life into a courtroom and hoped the comments would clap. "There she is," she said to her phone. "This is elder neglect in real time." Her voice floated high and sugar glass brittle. Light joke 1. To the donations box as I slid it farther under the desk. "You're a piggy bank, not a shield. Take 5. It minded its coins and its business. I stood. "Sloane," I said. "Bedtime cadence. Volumes set for libraries. You're violating a no-contact order. Turn around and leave. All logistics go to council." She lifted her chin, turned the camera toward my face, and spoke to an audience I could not see. Notice how she refuses to speak to her pregnant daughter-in-law? Internet. Tell me, is this okay? The front desk volunteer tapped the security button like a metronome. I repeated my sentence, no contact, and moved toward the office door, slow and untheatrical. Sloane took 2 steps after me, crossing a tape line none of us had noticed until it mattered. The center director appeared with a posture that said, "I have seen every Tuesday and survived." "Ma'am," she said, "you have to leave. We don't live stream staff." Officer Vega arrived before the comment section could finish a sentence. She wore the same practiced calm as on my porch and a body cam that doesn't do adjectives. "Miss Avery," she said, as if reciting choreography. "There is a no-contact order in effect. You need to go now or you'll be arrested for violating it." For a split second. Sloane's face remembered gravity. Then the ring light sagged. She turned and left, her phone filming the exit like it could sue the door. Quirky fact, offered to my own spine while we filled out the incident card. Many jurisdictions print domestic violence protective orders on colored paper, pink or canary, so officers can spot them fast. Color is a shortcut to safety. Mine sits in my weatherproof folder, white as an affidavit because our county prefers scans to shades. But the intention is the same, speed. Vega took my brief statement at the front desk with sentences that could pass any audit. "Do you wish to pursue a violation?" she asked. "Yes," I said. Not because I love paperwork, but because lanes stay painted only if someone brings paint. She nodded. "We'll forward to the prosecutor. In the meantime, call us before your pulse does." She tapped the edge of my folder and smiled with her eyes. "You're doing the boring parts very well." Back home. Alan had already seen the clip. Serena sent a screen grab with the caption, "Preserved. We won't feed it." Alan called. "We'll file a notice of violation and a short memo about proxy contact at the market. Also, expect a counterpunch, defamation again. Maybe a motion to dissolve the TRO. If they actually file, we anti-slap." He let the term land gently. Academic phrase of the day. Anti-slap statute. The public argument that courts should quickly dismiss lawsuits meant to silence protected speech, strategic lawsuits against public participation, and award fees to the target. Fans say it's free speech armor. Critics warn some use it as a cudgel to dodge legitimate claims. In our lane, it means if Sloane sues me over truthful, court-related statements, we move fast to strike and send the bill to the performance. Caleb texted, "I need to tell you something before Sloane weaponizes it." He arrived with apology that didn't try to get paid and a manila envelope that had decided to be useful. "Before the sale," he said. "I forwarded one of your emails to Sloan, an old one about the promissory note, because I thought she could help me keep track. It was lazy and disloyal, I'm sorry." He placed the printed email on the table like an object that finally belonged to the light. "If she waives it, I want you to know I handed it to the truth first." I felt the quick sting of remembered trust, then the slower easing of something that had been braced too long. "Thank you," I said. "We'll disclose it ourselves." I called Alan. He answered on the second ring, relief in his breath. "Great. We'll include it in a voluntary production. Label it Exhibit Ode, produced by plaintiff. It blunts any ambush. Light joke 2. To my stapler as it united Caleb's printout with our index. You officiate better than most chaplains. Keep marrying pages. It clicked, happy in its vocation. Lauren joined by video to finish the self-cleaning kitchen we'd started. "We filed the amended return," she said. "Installment plan approved. Brief truthful paragraph ready for the court. Error admitted. Corrected. Receipts attached." She looked at Caleb. "You just took away one of their levers. Keep doing that." By late afternoon, Sloan's lawyer filed a motion to dissolve the freeze, calling it draconian and attaching 3 pages of plans with numbers that didn't touch bank statements. Alan's opposition read like a cool towel. "There is a budget for rent and food. The rest is preserved to prevent dissipation. Plaintiff stipulates to escrow. Defendant refuses an accounting." He added our voluntary disclosure and the center incident as addenda, one labeled already fixed, the other already documented. Serena texted, "Heads up," and a still frame. Sloan had posted a sonogram with the caption, "A baby needs stability. Prayers welcome." Miss Carver slipped a note through my mail slot, a cartoon hydrangea with the words, "Our prayers include judges." The Parkers' dog posed on their stoop with a sock as if making an amends. I took a walk to the hardware store because aisles of small, honest objects calm me. A clerk in a vest sold me felt pads for chair legs and a tube of caulk labeled like it won a spelling bee. Quirky fact. To make the aisle feel crowded with allies, chair glides aren't about silence. They reduce lateral stress on joints and prolong the life of the screws. Lanes are like that. Less squeak, fewer breaks. On Rose. The doorbell blinked once. Delivery from Alan's office. A protective order draft for depositions. No recording for social. The first line read, "Phones off, body cams barred, only the stenographer captures words. Bless the stenographer and her 22 keys." Caleb knocked at 6 with bread, not a metaphor, and a printed therapy confirmation. He repaired my wobbly hall table without narrating it into redemption. "I'm reporting, not requesting," he said. "Tomorrow I meet with Alan again to sign a declaration. Forwarded email, noted and corrected." He hesitated. "If the baby is mine, I'll support through the court, on a schedule. No cash bags, no heroics." We ate soup that doesn't lie and let the house listen. Light joke 3. To the blue tape as we labeled a little folder ahead of them. "Your diplomacy on a roll. Don't stick to everything." It tore clean. Cooperative. Evening brought an email from the prosecutor. Violation notice received. A hearing would be scheduled in the meantime. Keep documenting. Serena replied with timestamps and links a clerk could love. Officer Vega added a line that reads like a lullaby. "We prefer calendars to sirens. Keep calling when you need the former to prevent the latter." Before bed. I wrote the day in the ledger in rows that make judges and kitchens relax. Community center. Ambush attempted. Order recited. Violation documented. Vega responded. Report filed. Sloan, motion to dissolve. Our opposition, filed with voluntary disclosure. Caleb, confessed forward of email, produced copy. Therapy confirmed. Lauren, IRS plan approved. Deposition. Protective order drafted. Hardware, felt pads, caulk, chairs, less squeak, soup, truthful, pulse, in key of ordinary. Then I added a line for future me when old weather tries to cosplay as new. Shame is a lever if you hide it, a receipt if you hand it over, and a souvenir if you outlive it. The house dimmed to its favorite volume. The porch camera kept monk hours. Somewhere. A clerk dragged a digital folder into the right bin and named it sensibly. In here? The stapler slept, the chair legs glided, and my keys lay in their bowl like small, law-abiding stars. Content to be exactly what they are and nothing dramatic at all. Monday arrived with cardigan weather and the kind of quiet that makes paper line up of its own accord. I packed a small, boring kit for Sloane's deposition. Protective order, 2 copies. A pen that writes without mood swings. Water, peppermints. And the sentence I use when rooms get theatrical: let the record show. The conference room chairs had good backs. The blinds chose dignity over sunlight. The court reporter tested her stenotype. Shoulders square, fingers ready to catch whatever survived our filters. Elder wisdom reflection. My grandmother's rule for hard conversations. Pack verbs. Leave adverbs at home. When someone tries to turn a meeting into a mirror, point their gaze back to the table. Facts have better posture than reflections. Phones went in the basket per the protective order. Sloane's lawyer objected to the basket as if it were a philosophy. Alan pointed to the order. The basket won. Sloane took her seat in litigation navy and a smile that expected to monetize sympathy. The oath landed, small and total. Alan started like a metronome. State your name. Sloane Avery. Do you own Sloane and Sundry, LLC? Yes. Were the $620,000 house sale proceeds wired into that LLC? Yes. Did you have any investors besides yourself? I had interest. Any investors? No. Serena placed Exhibit 7, a bank summary, on the table. Patient as weather. Line 14, Alan said. 6,900 luxury short-term rental. Business necessity? Sloane glanced at her lawyer, then at a middle distance where ring lights are born. Content house, she said. We were shooting a launch. What shipped? Hype, she said, then winced at the noun. Nothing physical. So the rental generated no deliverable? It generated audience. Which you cannot escrow, Alan said, still bedtime calm. Light joke 1. To the metal water pitcher as it posed under fluorescence. Your hydration, not a chandelier, stand down. It kept its shine to itself. We moved through the chart with the tenderness of a haircut, ad buys, creator retainers, and Ellison Creative Consulting, LLC, for Brand Arc. What is Brand Arc? Alan asked. Narrative scaffolding, she said, and even her lawyer suppressed a cough. Any inventory? Samples, she said. Borrowed. Purchase orders? Not yet. Receipts? Some. Serena's binder produced none. Academic phrase of the day. Piercing the corporate veil. The public argument that courts can ignore an LLC's shell and reach the owner when the entity is used as a personal alter ego. Undercapitalized. No separate books. Funds commingled. Supporters say it prevents injustice and paper fraud. Critics warn it chills risk-taking and muddies limited liability. In this room, it sounded like one bank account buying lattes, rent, and Brand Arc while calling itself a boutique. We took a break at the 10-minute mark because 10 useful minutes weigh more than an hour of adjectives. In the hall. The court reporter stretched her hands and nodded at my peppermint. It's a good day when people answer nouns, she said. I offered the bowl like sacrament. She declined with professional grace and a thermos that believed in tea. Back on the record, Alan asked about the porch incident. Were you arrested for slapping Miss Whitman? Allegedly, she said. Not allegedly, Alan said. Were you arrested? Yes. Is there a no-contact order in effect? Yes. Did you go to the community center on Thursday while she was working? It was public, she said. Is the order public or optional? Public, she admitted, and the record caught her concession like a glass set down carefully. Serena slid another exhibit, the motel folio. You extended your stay after the TRO? I needed stability, she said, and the word sounded exactly as expensive as it had been on my porch. Quirky fact, offered to my nerves while the reporter changed paper. Ring lights were invented for dental photography in 1952 by Lester Dine. The original goal was shadowless close-ups of teeth. Influencer glam is a second career. Molars were the first audience. I looked at the tote by Sloane's chair where a collapsible ring light sulked and thought. You were born to find cavities. Sloane's lawyer tried to make content into commerce. Alan let the paper reply. Any budget? We had projections. Any accounting? We're early stage. Any investors? We covered that. A few proper objections. Form, asked and answered, took their laps like responsible adults. Then it was over. 90 minutes, one oath. 47 answers that sounded like weather trying to be money. Light joke 2. Murmured to the basket of confiscated phones as we left. Thank you for your service as a very polite jail. They vibrated in low morale. Outside. Serena's summary landed in my inbox before the elevator remembered our floor. Depot useful, admissions no investors, no POs, content house, arrest violation acknowledged, tone, defensive, unspecific, next, oppose motion to dissolve with fresh transcript cites. Alan drafted while walking to TM, adding quotes that wear well in court. The world resumed its indoor voice. By Thursday, Lauren's voluntary disclosure packet had gone to the IRS. Amended return filed. Installment plan approved. Brief statement that reads like the inside of a clock, just gears. We filed a notice with the court. Plaintiff has corrected past tax errors, documentation attached. And in doing so, we took the only stick Sloane had threatened and turned it into a chair. Friday's hearing on the motion to dissolve arrived with Judge Porter's eyebrows in their neutral position. Sloane's counsel called the freeze draconian, waved a business plan that could not survive a grocery list, and invoked pregnancy like a universal solvent. Alan pointed to the TRO's narrowness, rent, food, allowed. Our offer to escrow, and now, deposition lines that don't perform. No inventory, he said. No investors, proceeds dissipating. Plaintiff asked for preservation, not punishment. Judge Porter asked one question I loved for its plain clothes. Where's the money now? Sloane's lawyer gestured at the plan again. Like paper could be a compass if you believed hard enough. In the account, he said. How much? He named a number that our subpoenas had already left behind. Serena's head tilted 1 degree. The judge's stamp arrived with a tone I hope to hear in my sleep forever. Motion denied. Freeze continues. Immediate accounting due Tuesday at 5 p.m. Receipts attached. Any further social posts referencing this litigation will be grounds for a protective order. The clerk's pen made a satisfied ellipse. Light joke 3. To the courtroom clock as it clicked politely toward lunch. We admire your governance. Carry on. It obliged. Stoic and punctual. Caleb waited in the hallway with an apple and a face that had learned the difference between hope and schedules. I'll go with Alan to sign the declaration about the forwarded email, he said. And I brought receipts. He held up a folder labeled Not a Metaphor with the shy pride of a man showing you his kid's report card. We'll scan them, I said. Then dinner, if you bring bread. He grinned. Yes, ma'am. Back on Rose Street, Miss Carver tapped the hydrangea bucket like it was a gavel. How'd the eyebrows rule? Chairs prevailed, I said. The Parker's dog paraded a shoe he had located without permission and attempted an apology by wiggling. I accepted on behalf of the neighborhood. In my kitchen, I wrote the day into the ledger in rows that calmed the air. Deposition. Phones basketed. Admissions captured. No investors. No POs. Content house. Arrest violation. Transcript. Sites ready. IRS. Amended return filed / plan approved. Motion to dissolve. Denied. Accounting. Due. Tuesday 5 p.m. Social. Future post sanctioned. Caleb. Declaration signed. Receipts in. Dinner. Depends on bread. Water. 3 glasses. Pulse. In key of ordinary. Then I added one line for the version of me who will someday think bravery feels like fireworks. It doesn't. Bravery is paperwork that arrives on time. A judge who likes chairs, and a house that recognizes your key on the first try. As night settled, the doorbell camera glowed once like a disciplined firefly. The strike plate's long screws held their small, necessary line, somewhere. A stenographer translated corded keystrokes into a truth that will read the same tomorrow, in here. The cardigan kept its post on the chair back. The peppermints regarded their duty with pride, and the ledger, bland, heroic, waited for the next small entry that proves a life can be kept in lanes without losing its heart. Tuesday at 4:58 p.m., the court's portal received exactly what I'd expected from Sloane's side, an accounting that looked like a vision board faintly allergic to math. Screenshots of app balances. A spreadsheet without dates. And a line called Brand Momentum Valued at Optimism. Serena forwarded it with a subject line that contained only a chair emoji and the word no. Alan called Judge Porter's clerk to confirm what every clerk loves. We had the bank subpoenas, the timestamps, the outflows, and our patience in a binder with tabs that don't shed. Elder wisdom reflection. My grandmother's twin to courage. When someone hands you glitter, ask for receipts. Then keep asking, softly and exactly, until the room remembers what money is. By Wednesday morning, we were back on the 6th floor. The hallway smelled like old varnish and decisions. Light joke 1. To the vending machine humming by the elevators. Your snacks, not jurisprudence. Stop looking so decisive. It pretended not to hear and clicked a row of potato chips into alignment. Inside. The hearing wore its cardigan properly. Alan opened with verbs. Defendant's accounting lacks dates, bank identifiers, and receipts, he said. Plaintiff offers the bank's own ledgers, wire in, ad spend out, luxury rental, consultant payments, cash withdrawals in round numbers. We renew our request for escrow, and we ask the court to appoint a limited receiver over the boutique account so rent and food continue, but the big pipes are supervised. He slid Serena's chart forward. The clerk took it like a librarian guarding first editions. Sloane's counsel gestured earnestly at their spreadsheet. We're early stage, he said, again. The business is nascent. Judge Porter's eyebrows held their neutral line. Where are the receipts? He shuffled papers, found none, and reached for pregnancy as if it were an exhibit. The judge nodded at the belly and then at the law. Rent and groceries are protected. That was true last week. It is true today. Where are the receipts? Quirky fact. Offered to my own pulse while counsel fished for a noun. Judges in U.S. trial courts rarely use gavels. That's mostly television. The stamp and the docket do the real percussion. I let my eyes rest on the stamp pad like a metronome. Grant Ellison called as a supplement to his deposition. Kept his voice in the key of contrition. No deliverables shipped, he repeated. Payments were for concepts and personal time. I can provide messages and invoices already produced. Serena pulled the exhibits from a binder clip like a magician who hates tricks. Academic phrase of the day. Equitable tracing. The public argument that when money is shuffled around or commingled, courts in equity can follow the identifiable proceeds into whatever account or asset they land in. Then impose a constructive trust or order return. Supporters say it prevents unjust enrichment. Critics warn it can complicate bookkeeping and chill legitimate transfers. In our room, it meant the court can follow those dollars into Sloan and Sundry and keep them from turning into smoke. Judge Porter ruled like a person who enjoys chairs. Accounting is insufficient. Temporary restraining order remains. Boutique account placed under limited receivership for 90 days. Receiver to authorize ordinary living expenses and ordinary business necessities upon receipt of invoice. All add. Consulting. Or rental spends require court approval. Defendant to escrow $120,000 within 5 business days. Failure triggers sanctions. The stamp made a soft thunder. Light joke 2, whispered to the ceiling fan as it tried not to preen. Good job pretending to be the gavel. It kept the air democratic. Outside, sunlight was a little less theatrical. Serena exhaled. Receivership keeps the pipes honest, she said. Alan nodded and noticed the word ordinary. Adbys and Brand Arc don't live there. We were halfway down the marble when the portal pinged again. Sloane's counsel had filed a supplemental declaration, which was 3 pages of feelings and 1 screenshot of an email from Caleb, the same old forward he'd confessed, dressed up like an ambush. Alan smiled the smile of a man who already owns the umbrella. Filed by us yesterday, he said. Voluntary production. Exhibit owed. Ambush cancelled. He forwarded the clerk our index. The clerk replied with the best sentence courts write, noted. Back at my kitchen table, I made sandwiches that worked for a living and watched Lauren's email populate my screen with kindness disguised as columns. IRS installment plan confirmed, she wrote. First debit in 14 days. Will submit the court notice this afternoon. She attached a 1-paragraph filing that sounded like a heartbeat. Correction initiated, plan established, documentation attached. We sent it, the docket swallowed it, the judge's inbox grew 1 ounce heavier in the right direction. At dusk, Caleb showed up with bread, not a metaphor, and a receipt folder labeled with his new favorite sentence. Ahead of them, he fixed the sticky drawer that had been telling me secrets for a year and held up his bus pass like proof of life. 30 days at group next week, he said, voice modest. I'll bring the coin if you'll show me where the screwdriver lives. Top drawer, I said, with the receipts. The receiver, an accountant named Martin with eyeglasses that suggested patience, called from a number that respected voicemail. Miss Whitman, he said. I'll be supervising the Sloan and Sundry account per court order. If you receive any invoices or communications accidentally, forward to my address. Otherwise, stay in your lane. You're doing fine there. A man after my own file tabs. Sloan tried one more play the next morning, a motion to modify the protective order so she could document her truth. Alan filed an opposition that read like a lullaby for chaos. No one is stopping defendant from speaking about her feelings, it said. The order limits filming depositions and hearings. Process, not opinion. Courts are not content farms. Judge Porter stamped denied before my kettle hit a boil. Light joke 3, to the kettle as it started dramatizing. We're making coffee, not case law. Keep it low. It simmered like a grown-up. 2 days later. The civil bench trial on the promissory note arrived like a small, punctual train. We had stipulated most of it, the note, the lien, the demand, the non-payment, Caleb's consent to judgment, a payment plan that didn't lie. Judge Porter entered judgment for $40,000 plus modest interest, with an order that payments auto-draft into a court-monitored account until paid in full. Caleb signed, not theatrically, but with relief and a pen that didn't hesitate. He squeezed my hand once on the courthouse steps. the way a son does when he is learning to be a man in the exact same 5 minutes. The unjust enrichment and constructive trust claims, larger and more dramatic by nature, were set for a later evidentiary hearing. We had the receiver now, and the court's appetite for ad spend was, delightfully, nil. In the meantime, the criminal case for the porch slap ticked toward a plea calendar. Officer Vega's report and the doorbell camera's monk footage had eliminated any need for speeches. Miss Carver, watering what looked like a fully saturated hydrangea, called over the fence as I got home. "Did the stamp behave?" "It behaved like a stamp," I said, which is the kind of love letter bureaucracy deserves. The Parker's dog trotted by with a sock and the humility of a reformed thief. I accepted his apology on behalf of textiles. That night I cooked lentils that cooperated, buttered toast that didn't pontificate, and wrote the day into the ledger. Accounting, insufficient, receivership, granted, escrow, ordered, 120 cash 5 days. Modify filming, denied, note, judgment entered plus auto draft, IRS, plan confirmed, Caleb, 30-day chip pending, receipts in, grant, steady, Serena, unflappable, Martin, receiver, introduced, social, ignored, water, 3 glasses, pulse, key of ordinary. Then I added 1 sentence for future me, in case old weather tries cosplay. You are not winning, you are maintaining. That's better. The next morning, the receiver emailed a polite memo, escrow funded in full, ordinary expenses approved, rent, groceries, prenatal visits. All non-essential spends paused pending invoices and court okay. He copied everyone with the confidence of a person who enjoys receipts. "Thank you," I replied, and meant it like prayer. Lauren sent me a tiny celebration, a screenshot of the IRS portal showing plan active. Alan forwarded a calendar invite for the evidentiary hearing with the subject chair's scenes. Serena texted a photo of a closed ring light at a thrift store with the caption, "Teeth." A private joke born of deposition trivia. I stepped onto my porch with a mug and a schedule. The door recognized my key. The strike plate held its line. The new doorbell observed like a monk who'd learned how to photograph justice without making itself the subject. Somewhere downtown, a clerk toggled our case from TRO to receivership in place. And a bank's compliance team checked a box that might never earn applause but saves whole neighborhoods from catching fire. I watered the azaleas and let the hose remind me what a clean corridor of time feels like. Across the street. The Parkers waved. Miss Carver saluted me with her watering can. The dog performed a sit worthy of case law. Inside, my ledger, heroic in its blandness, waited for the next small entry. Peace wasn't a prize. It was a plan. Laminated and calendarized, stamped and supervised, with room in the margins for 1 tidy azalea and the occasional joke at a kettle's expense. The evidentiary hearing arrived like a day that had ironed its shirt. No shine. Just ready. Martin, the receiver with patient eyeglasses, filed his report at 8:03 a.m., escrow funded, ordinary expenses permitted. All brand arc spends declined for want of invoices. Serena carried a binder that looked like it could survive weather. Alan tucked our copies underneath my elbow as if paper likes being under muscle. My kettle cooled on the counter. Instructed, light joke 1. We are brewing fortitude, not opera. Keep your steam humble. It sighed and complied. Court was cool. The thermostat's way of reminding adrenaline it doesn't make the rules here. Judge Porter listened like a person who has traded applause for timestamps. Martin testified first. The way accountants do when they know oxygen is evidence. Sloan and Sundry had no proper books. Personal and business expenses commingled. Remaining proceeds protected. Rent and groceries approved. Creative consulting flagged for drought. His sentences wore math like good boots. Grant Ellison followed, voice steady, contrition without perfume. He confirmed the invoices were for ideas that never shipped. Meetings that looked like weekends. A content house that generated only mirrors. Then the bank custodian took the stand, described wires and outflows with the soft authority of a person who let screens do the boasting. Serena's charts kept pace, wire in by morning, luxury rental by dinner, cash withdrawals in round numbers like stones dropping into a lake without bothering to ripple. Academic phrase of the day: prejudgment attachment, the public argument about whether courts should freeze or seize assets before a final judgment to prevent dissipation. Supporters say it preserves a remedy and deters gamesmanship. Critics warn it can punish before proof and burden legitimate ventures. Our version was narrower and gentler, dressed as a receivership with grocery exceptions and an escrow that doesn't starve anyone, only their appetite for smoke. Sloane's turn arrived wearing a blue dress in a face you wear when an audience has to be imagined. Her counsel invoked optimism as if it were a ledger. Early stage entrepreneurship, he said. Momentum. Judge Porter pressed the button that makes adjectives become numbers. Inventory? Samples. Purchase orders? Not yet. Investors? Interest. Receipts? Some. Martin's eyebrows were Switzerland, but the spreadsheet was France, and it had already been invaded. The judge ruled. No gavel, only a stamp that sounded like a soft thunderclap. Constructive trust imposed on remaining proceeds. Receivership extended 90 days. Escrow maintained. Any ad. Consultant. Or rental expenditure to be approved in advance with an invoice attached to reality. Wage garnishment authorized if escrow falls below a line the court could name without checking notes. Criminal referral to the DA's Economic Crimes Unit for review. No comment. The clerk's pen made a tidy ellipse. The ceiling fan pretended to be a metronome. Light joke too. Whispered to it, "You are not a gavel. Thank you for faking it responsibly." Outside. Sunlight remembered how to be ordinary. Alan briefed in 3 quiet sentences. Our lane is clear. Your porch is safe. Your patience is paying dividends. Serena squeezed my forearm once, the way professionals hug without getting disbarred. Martin promised monthly reports with words like authorized and declined, which is the lullaby of money told to behave. Officer Vega, passing us in the hall on another case entirely, tapped her body cam and mouthed, "Calendars, not sirens." I held up my folder and mouthed back, "Always." 2 weeks later, the assault case pled down to a misdemeanor with probation and a non-contact extension. Sloane stood in the dock without theater. The judge said a sentence that belonged on a kitchen wall. "Hands and cameras are both subject to the law." She nodded. Then she left. Smaller than her ring light, which is how consequences sometimes look in daylight. After that, the house learned the key of quiet again. Caleb kept his end of the note judgment, auto-drafted monthly. Small and honest, he worked at the warehouse, brought me bread labeled "not a metaphor," fixed the stubborn closet track that had been translating itself into a complaint. 30 days became 60. His chip a coin that clicked against his ring of keys like applause with manners. He texted, "Therapy today," without asking for confetti, and sent a screenshot of his bus pass like proof of a treaty. We ate soup that didn't lie and practiced being people who can talk about money without letting it narrate us. Elder wisdom reflection, my grandmother's last long sentence. The one she said over peelings and taxes. When peace arrives, do not make it audition. Feed it, schedule it, and give it chores. The transcendence can wait, the dishes can't. Quirky fact, folded into a week that began to feel like something I'd ordered. The scent after desert rain, the one people call petrichor, isn't just wet dirt. Out west, it's mostly the creosote bush, Laria tridentata, releasing oils it saved for dry months. Molecules that ride the rain's bubbles into the air and pop into your nose like tiny, lawful fireworks. I read that on a library card and tucked the word away because a plan had started in my bones. Arizona. A porch with shade. A neighbor named Ruth Delgado who answers questions with coffee. Mornings without lawsuits. I sold the house on Rose without theater, modest price. Thorough disclosures. A doorknob that never once tried to tell me a story. The escrow papers felt like endings do in grown-up lives. Stamps. A handshake. The key sliding into someone else's bowl with grace. I kept a copy of Officer Vega's first incident email because origin stories deserve a folder. Then I arranged a small caravan, half my books. The ledger. The door plate screws I'd bought on a day I thought I might never feel safe again. And the azalea in a pot like a paragraph that decided to travel. Arizona received me with a sky that knows its job. Ruth knocked on day 2 with a lemon bar that tasted like somebody's aunt had won at kindness. She pointed out the grab bar installer who charges fair and shows up, the clinic where nurses say your name like a sentence worth finishing, the water district drop box that loves stamped envelopes. I planted a creosote in a blue pot and waited for rain. Not yet. The plant said politely, soon. Tessa Avery came 3 Sundays later, hands wrapped around a folder that wanted a chair. She is Sloane's sister, and her eyes carry old weather that has finally retired from warnings. She'll try again, Tessa said. Somewhere else, different city, same ring light. I need to know how to be a person who doesn't feed her. We sat at my little table and I slid over the map I wish I'd possessed on the first morning. The weatherproof checklist, the lane sentences, the no-contact script, the calendar with the phrase, choose chairs printed across the top like a banner. You don't owe her an audience, I said. You owe your future a schedule. Light joke 3, to the tape as we labeled Tessa's new folder ahead of them. You are diplomacy on a cardboard core, tear clean, please. It obeyed with a crisp conscience. We walked the courtyard at dusk. 2 women and a plant waiting for a storm. Ruth waved. A neighbor's kid drew chalk galaxies on the sidewalk. Somewhere a porch fan hummed its secular hymn. I wanted to be grand and couldn't find the need. The ledger sat on my counter, heroic in its blandness. The door recognized my key at the first try. The kettle had learned how to simmer without pretending to write poetry. When the rain finally came, weeks later, it brought the creosote smell like a letter carried in the pocket of a careful friend. I stood under the awning and counted faucets I had installed on purpose, the receiver's monthly reports, the escrow account still sitting like a patient river, the auto draft to my peace. I felt a life arrive that was not a prize but a practice, and I decided, again, to keep it. The suitcases roll in at dawn, and a porch learns how to tell the truth. A woman named Nora asks for nouns where other people bring adjectives, and when the answers do not show their papers. She closes her door, calls 911 with a steady hand, and presses charges that feel less like revenge than repair. A judge grants a no-contact order. A locksmith sets long screws into a strike plate until the door frame stops pretending it is theater. A doorbell camera is taught to testify without filming the neighbor's hydrangeas. In the files, a $40,000 promissory note wakes up from a quiet drawer. An attorney called Alan and an investigator named Serena lace the story with timestamps. A receiver named Martin keeps the big pipes honest while groceries. Rent and prenatal visits pass without fuss. A consultant named Grant comes clean and lets his invoices speak louder than regret. Across hearings that prefer chairs to scenes. Courts impose a narrow freeze. An escrow. A receivership. And, later, a constructive trust. The assault case pleads. The stamp does its soft thunder. Caleb, who has been both witness and weather. chooses a lane with clocks, therapy, group, a bus pass, a ledger, an auto draft, and repays what was lent without narrating it into absolution. Sloane's ring light finds fewer rooms willing to be an audience. The neighborhood returns to its chores and its gentle gossip. And then there is the long, generous after. A sale without spectacle. A small apartment in Arizona where the creosote will one day release its rain-saved scent. A neighbor named Ruth who knows which installers keep appointments. And a sister named Tessa who arrives asking how to stop feeding storms. The answer is not a miracle. It is paperwork and calendars, recipes and receipts. A handful of phrases practiced until they become furniture. And a house that recognizes your key on the first try. Every time.